Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this year. And let me tell you, what a year it has been. Yes, you heard me right. I said this year. This is our year end this week. So we're going to look back at the year that we have just had. And I've come up with my top 10 list of, I'm going to call them news trends, simply because some of them kind of incorporate multiple stories in them. But yeah, we're going to count those down through the afternoon. Also, of course, going to be taking viewer questions, all of that fun stuff. We'll chat about whatever. And I'll go off on tangents. It always happens. It always happens. So yeah, I can't believe we're already past Christmas. We're all the end of the year is nigh. In fact, guys, we're doing a live stream on New Year's Eve. It's going to start at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That will be a lot of fun as well. During that one, we're going to, of course, do what we did last year. We're going to go back and look at the predictions that I made for 2024. And as a group, we're going to rank and see how well I did or didn't do. I honestly can't remember the predictions that I made. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That will be a lot of fun. Probably surprises for all of us involved completely. All right, guys, before we even break the wrapper on the top 10, let's say hello to chat. Jonathan is in first. Am I too late for 2024? Yes, it did. It started about 12 months ago, Jonathan. 12 months ago. Bismarck, he says, happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Sunday to you as well. I know you. Just a typo. But I like having fun with that. I like to try to pronounce some of the bizarre typos sometimes. It's just fun. 9 is in with a holy banana bread. We got Mary in the house with a happy Sunday. So guys, hit those like buttons because you don't want Mary cracking her knuckles on yous. We got a greetings from Bleak784. Hello, Bleak. Good to see you. And Jay is in the house with a hi, everyone. And we got Stan in the house with a hello, all. Sammer is in with a Buenos Tard all. I know I pronounced that completely wrong. I know I did. And I don't even know how I'm supposed to pronounce it, but I know it was wrong. Jordan says, hello and good afternoon, Candace and all of chat fam. Hope all are well this holiday season. Yeah, absolutely. It's been a good year. It's been a good year. Can't complain too much. Sue is in the house with a hi. Hello there, Sue. And we got JJ in the house with a good day, fam, and working at the moment. Uh-oh. Well, you gotta keep those test tubes full. You gotta keep them full. Roku is in the house with a good day, all. And let's see. JJ says, gonna go for KBBQ later this evening with the family and friends. I think that means Korean barbecue, but they're pretty good. They're pretty good. Gotta love a good barbecue, that's for sure. All right. So, guys, I want some interaction on this one. So I pretty much ranked them the way I think they reflect on the year. But you guys are gonna it's okay to completely disagree with the order that I put them in. So, as I'm dropping these, if you guys are like, hey, that one was bigger deal than number 10 or number 9, yeah, feel free. And I might even miss some big stories. I might have missed some. So, be free as well, just to throw in your stories as we're moving along, talking a little bit about what's gone down in the year. So, this is as good as time as any to break out with number 10. So our number 10 trend has been mortgage renewals. That has been one of the big driving forces of the year. So of course, 2024 saw the beginning of that pandemic mortgage renewals wave coming in. So we did experience a significant volume of mortgage renewals as many homeowners came to off, well, those are really low pandemic rates. And that's the whole thing. A lot of people couldn't afford the new higher rate environment that we were in. And there was definitely a lot of concerns over increased monthly payments and what the affordability was going to be with these new higher mortgages. Now, it has been estimated that we've seen about 1/5. Oh, that's all, just 1/5 of the pandemic low rate renewals coming up this year. The heavier part of the wave is yet to come, and that's most of it's going to be 2025. We are going to have some in 2026 as well. Now, as we've been worried, is with the higher rates, people not being able to afford things. So, looking at foreclosure rates, they did edge up a little bit in response to these higher rates. Though, and this is a good thing, they actually remain relatively low by historical standards. So, according to the Canadian Bankers Association, the average annualized foreclosure rate for 2024 is looking to come in between 0.2 and 0.25%. Now and I said it was up a little bit. In 2023, it was at 0.15%. So definitely up a wee bit. Now, despite these rises, um, a lot of foreclosures didn't happen. They were prevented by a whole bunch of everything from government-backed mortgage programs, flexible refinancing terms that were offered, of course, by the banks. You guys have probably heard me say amortization quite a few times. As well, there was overall improvements in employment figures. The fact that employment, even though we're going to talk about unemployment was still pretty good for most of the year, and that certainly helped things as well. Um, all of this together has certainly helped Canadians handle that added financial strain. But it has been a moving story. And of course, you guys all know that's one of the things that's been impacting the banks big time. So the banks have been putting aside money for loan loss provisioning. And, in most cases, most of the big six have more than $1 billion put aside just to handle these losses. So that, of course, has impacted banks lower, their bottom line. So, when you're putting away money, you're not using it for other things like running the business. So that does impact fundamentals on the banking side as well. So this is why it came in at number 10, because I think it's a big story. I think it's an ongoing story. And I think we've only had the prelude chapter to that story. So 2025 is going to be very interesting. I have a feeling that a year from now, when we're doing this again, the mortgage pandemic rates renewals, that I think it might even be higher on the list. But for this year, we're coming in at number 10. We're coming in at number 10 on the list. Northern Gal says, I'm about 3.5 minutes behind, listening at double speed. Hello, all. Yeah, that's what happens. It'd be really funny if right now I started talking super fast like a chipmunk. Then when Northern Gal hits this point, she'll think her thing is broken. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to do that, but it would be funny. It would be funny. Vineet says, hi, all. Hello there, Vineet. Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, Northern Gal was there. Listen to that part. Okay. There we go. I'm glad I didn't try then. I'm glad I would have had egg on my face if I had tried. So that's good. That's good. Oh boy. Oh boy, guys, we've had one of these of the 10 stories. So I'm kind of curious as well. What do you think? I'd love to see your guesses for number one. I would love to see some guesses. I'm not going to spoil it, but I still would be interesting to see if one of you guys gets it right. You never know. Because I'll tell you, when I was coming through, one of the stories I thought might make it to number one actually ended up falling a bit further down. So it was definitely interesting. All right. Well, guys, let's move along. Let's keep the train rolling. And we'll talk about number 9, year of the strike. Holy banana bread. So I was going to say 1995. 2024 was a year in Canada that saw a crazy amount of strikes. In fact, and this number blows me away. So in 2024, we had a total of 129 strikes. Now, 94 of those were in the public sector, and 35 were in the private sector. But still, that was a lot of strikes. Now, a few of these strikes had, of course, big impacts on the supply chain. And if you guys remember, 2023, we were struggling getting that supply chain up and running, trying to get over a lot of issues for everything from the cargo ports to labor shortages. We finally got the supply chain moving half decent, and then we had some big strikes to impact it. Was not good timing. So we had, of course, we had 2 different strikes at the West Coast ports, and we also had a strike at the Montreal port. Now, not only do these things entangle up the supply chain, but they cost, of course, the GDP. They cost us money. So these strikes at the ports, they were estimated to have cost Canada between $250 and $500 million every day, with a total expected to come in between 3 to 5 billion. So that's 3 to 5 billion out of the Canadian GDP from those strikes. We don't have the final figures yet. Like, those won't come out until next year. But it was still pretty devastating. Now, what was even worse is we also had a double rail strike back in August. So we saw both CP and CNR go on strike, and that rail strike that cost our GDP roughly 1 to 1.5 billion. Luckily, it was short. If it had gone on any longer, it could have absolutely been devastating. But one of the interesting things with these strikes is that, the government kind of came in and we had some binding arbitration, and this definitely was one of the things that helped damage the relationships between the NDP and the Liberals, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Of course, as we were winding down this year, we finally got most of the strikes out of our system. Well, then we had a doozy. So we had a big prolonged postal strike to cap off the year. Now, this one didn't hurt the GDP as much as it hurt a lot of small businesses, which of course hurts the GDP. So that's always fun. Now, one estimate right now is that while the postal strike was running, it was costing small businesses about $17 million per day. So, and keep in mind that ran for like 30 plus days. Well, I can't remember the exact number of days. Was it? Yeah, I forget the exact number. It was either 31 or 36 for some reason. Those two numbers pop into my head. But yeah, a lot of striking. And this was another one. Now, this was an interesting one. The government didn't come in with binding arbitration, but they kind of snuck it in anyway. And they were ordered back to work by, in a non-binding arbitration way, because the legislation on binding arbitration would have been a vote of non-confidence type vote, and the government's a little bit worried about a vote of non-confidence at this point. And once again, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But what can I say? Sammer has an early election. Well, yeah, we're not going to. we're not going to have an election in 2024. I will definitely say that. But 2025, 2025, there's 100% we're getting an election in 2025. The big question is going to be later. Is it going to be later in the year, or is it going to be much earlier than we think? And we're going to hit on that. That is one of the stories that does tie into a story pretty high up for sure. I love it. I love it. All right, guys, let's move along. We'll move right into story number 8. We're getting through these really fast. All right. So story number 8 is the rise of AI. So of course, AI had been chugging along nicely coming into 2024, and there's been a lot of huge strides forward. So if you looked at the beginning of the year at a little stock called NVIDIA, oh boy, their share price at the time I was pulling this data, so I pulled this on Friday, their share price went up 174.83%. So that's pretty significant. And in fact, pretty much it was smooth sailing at least the first half of the year. It was smooth sailing for almost, I don't want to say all tech stocks, but for almost any tech stocks that people thought might have anything related to AI. There was investors were gobbling it up like crazy. Now, of course, by the middle part of 2024, we ran into a bit of a less smooth sailing, a little bit more choppy waters. Basically, in a nutshell, investors were having problems seeing where all of this money that all the big tech companies were investing in AI, they were having a problem seeing how it was going to make them money. And this got investors a little bit nervous. And of course, we had in the fall a lot of bad earnings reports because investors were a little bit worried. And interestingly enough, even NVIDIA in the fall, we had that famous live stream we did where they beat expectations but still fell. So that was kind of the sentiment. Now things are starting to look a little bit better. Other than Meta, I will mention this as well. Let's throw this off on the side. Meta did fine through that whole thing because they have been showing what they're doing with AI. So they're using it for ads, and their ads are being quite successful. And it's almost uncanny sometimes how well sometimes they'll serve up some ads, and that's kind of fun. But second half of the year, as AI continue to advance, and as AI agents start to are on the sort of looming horizon, investors are starting to feel a little bit better again. They're starting to see how all of this investment into AI is going to make them money, and some of that mania has even spilled out into things, for example, like because AI using so much energy, that has really helped the uranium. Like if you look at uranium, the second half of 2024 has been flying. Why? Well, because there's a lot more nuclear reactors that are going to be coming online, that are going to be constructed. That's absolutely helping big time. So yeah, despite that volatility in the second half of AI is continuing to improve. AI agents are coming, and we've got a new model of ChatGPT that's going to launch early in 2025. That's going to be the O3. Currently, right now, their best model right now is the O1, but O3 is coming out. It is public testing right now, so that's not too shabby, and it's going to be an interesting year, I think, for AI, for sure. All right, that was number 8. That was number 8. Oh, we still got a whole bunch of these to go. Normally, I only have 8 news articles. Here we got a top 10. So we do have lots more. Let's see here. Jordan says, the strike technically isn't over. They are ordered back until May 22nd. After that, we may be looking at a strike again unless they come to terms in the meantime. Yeah, that is absolutely true. It was the same thing like with CN, for example. That strike technically wasn't over, but it is now. They actually did come to terms. And we're hoping that something can happen for the mail because we don't want to see another strike. And I know Jordan is one of those people who has a small business. Jordan does glass blowing, and he was having difficulty being able to ship over the holidays, and yeah, that strike I think was definitely annoying. But I will mention one thing on the positive side. I mentioned a while back that when I ordered my little fuzzy guy here, the first one that came was broken. So I had to do a return and get a new one, but they wanted me to ship it at my own expense, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I don't want to do this." So I waited for the I waited for the strike to get over, and then they had the Canada Post option. I'm like, "Oh, okay, perfect. There we go." So thank you, Canada Post, for ending the strike. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sure. Whoops, I didn't even put you up, Jordan. There we go. Um, yeah, so that was story number 8. All right. Let's move on. Let's get into story 7. All right. All right, here we go. So story 7, and it's not technically a story per se. Like I said, if these are more drivers, the seventh biggest issue news driver of the year was the cost of groceries, the cost of living overall. So the cost of living, it absolutely remained elevated in 2024 compared to those pre-pandemic levels. There was some signs of price stability in some sectors by mid-year. However, the first half of the year we still had. So if you guys remember, the interest rate cuts didn't even begin until June. So the first half of the year we still had maximum rates going forward, and that was not helping anything at all. It was, of course, making borrowing and those mortgage renewals we talked about earlier costlier for most households. So households disposable income very, very, very low, and that was definitely impacting everything. And it was kind of really interesting too. You had, of course, groceries going absolutely crazy. So the grocery sector in particular, they faced continued upward pressure, and things like fresh produce, dairy, meat. So the staples were absolutely costing you much, much more than most families could even afford. So they remained at historically high levels. Of course, even with inflation coming down, it didn't really help a lot. It didn't help a lot. There was still everything from ongoing supply chain complications, labor disputes, commodity price fluctuations. Those were keeping wholesale costs higher. And of course, the retailers passed on those added expenses to the consumers. They were not going to eat those prices themselves. There was some signs of relief in the later half of 2024, but if anything, it wasn't prices coming down. It was just prices going up a little bit slower in most cases. I mean, it's been argued that even the wage growth, some people are saying, okay, wages have been coming up pretty good, but when you compare the wage growth compared to inflation, um, nobody's kept up. Nobody's kept up. It's still lagged behind the rising cost of living and overall deepened affordability issues. So not a good thing at all. Now, luckily, in some cases, seasonal surpluses have slowly helped improve a bit. Also, we've had a little bit of improvement in logistics infrastructure to help stabilize costs for basically items like grains and some select produce. So we got a little bit of a break in that area, but overall, it's still pretty bad. Now, some retailers, at least, well, this is kind of good, did introduce some more aggressive discount programs to retain price-sensitive customers. Despite these improvements, grocery bills generally trended higher year over year. So not a good year. And we could even go off on a tangent here and just say the use of food banks up huge in 2024, and not just because of the high demand on food banks too. A lot of people who were going to food banks were getting less food. So yeah, it definitely was very, very hard right across the board. So hopefully, hopefully it hasn't impacted you guys too much, but I imagine it probably has at least impacted a few of you, or if not all of you, in some way, shape, or form. Jordan says, I managed to get one package out through a private courier, about twice the cost of Canada Post. The customer wasn't happy, but wanted their product immediately. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of that thing. I mean, what can you do? What can you do? At least they're back now. Now they did initially say when they came back that their backlog is going to take them into the new year to get that cleared. But the last I heard something, I think a couple of days ago, saying that they were getting through it much faster than anticipated. So hopefully things are starting to roll now. That's what I'm hoping. All right, boy, that was story number what 7. We're at number 6 now. This story at number 6 may be a story that I argued. I argued with myself over this one. Should this be higher than 6? There's just so many good stories. That's how a good story like this could end up at number 6. Well, what is that story? Well, the surge of Bitcoin. The surge of Bitcoin comes in at number 6. So Bitcoin had 2024 record-breaking year for Bitcoin for sure. It actually began all the way back in January with the approval, when we got the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And we're talking in the US. We've had them in Canada for longer, but the US approval of spot Bitcoin ETFs, without a doubt, that kindled a lot of interest in Bitcoin. And a lot of people could now, in the US, easily invest into Bitcoin without having to worry about keys and wallets and all of that stuff. So that did certainly help. We had a bit of a pump right after that. And then though, we then moved into what's called the halving. So basically, roughly every 4 years, roughly, we have a halving. So at a halving, what happens is basically, as miners are solving mathematical equations, so they solve these algorithms and things, and it rewards them a certain amount of blocks of Bitcoin. In this case, with the halving, it cuts that reward in half. So instantly, with the halving, we had miners who were making half of what they normally make. So yeah, this had a huge impact, big time on the miners. And they have to wait for the price to almost double to get back to where they were. Now, some miners started actually renting out some of their servers to AI because AI has that huge demand for computational power. So that's how some of them certainly made things meet. Others sold Bitcoin, like some of their stores of Bitcoin. It's like, yeah, we're going to sell it. We just need to, we need to pay the bills. So a lot of that happened. Now, here's the thing. When you have halving, normally it takes 4 to 5 months before you get a big pump in Bitcoin. And I remember everybody was looking at Bitcoin in the community and everywhere else after the halving, and they're like, "Where is it? Where's the pump? Where's the pump?" Well, the pump did come. It came in the final quarter of the year. It reached up. It hit a new all-time high, and then it set a whole new all-time high. So basically, we broke 100K USD, which is a level that many of of course, the pro-Bitcoin community, they have been waiting for that. If you guys remember back in the olden days, back when we had Crypto Night in Canada, the dancers used to have their 100K hats. That was from the last bull market, as they were hoping for it back then. But we did finally get it. In fact, right now, the current all-time high sits around 108,000 USD, which is pretty good. Now, this is not all the halving. We also had, of course, Donald Trump coming in, and Donald Trump had already stated very clearly he's pro-Bitcoin. He threatened to fire Gensler from the SEC to get in a more Bitcoin-friendly chairman. And yeah, that all happened. I mean, other than the fact that Gensler quit, but we now have we had that extra added pressure that definitely helped as well. But keep in mind, I actually think Trump's getting a tiny bit more credit for the pump than he probably deserves, because we knew this was coming because of the halving. This is what happens every single time. So yes, he helped, absolutely. But I still think we would have been above 100K without him by the end of the year. But maybe he can take credit for that 8K. I know he certainly went online and took credit for the entire the entire pump, but we knew that that was coming, and we talked about it like on this channel for quite a bit as well. And of course, MicroStrategy. So MicroStrategy, they also exploded thanks to the fact that they're holding so much Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and they also had that whole system of selling convertible bonds, just basically to create cheap debt to buy more Bitcoin. Um, yeah, they just absolutely exploded. So in fact, year to date, they exploded by 424.68%. That's not too shabby. Not just that though. You also have to keep in mind that because of how much MicroStrategy's exploded, they got themselves onto the Nasdaq at the end of the year. So they actually joined the Nasdaq on the 23rd. So that's going to help them going into 2025. So that's going to be a very they're going to be interesting to watch. And I think Bitcoin is going to also be interesting to watch. I know I sort of said that I'm thinking 120,000 as the top, but it's really hard to say now. I know my guesstimate is conservative. I have a feeling I could be wrong. I think it might go higher, but I'm still going to sit. I'm still going to sit on that 120 though. But it'll be, I think Bitcoin and crypto in general will be fun to watch going into 2025. And that, folks, is why it got story number 6. Story number 6. Jonathan says, I think the U.S. election will be the number one story. Interesting. Jonathan says, hit the like button, people. Mary's still watching. And yeah, she is. Well, guys, if you're going to hit the like button, I'm going to have some coffee. Oh, gosh, that's so good. Very, very good. Okay. Well, let's jump to our number 5 story. All right. So number 5. Well, immigration. In 2024, Canada continued our push for higher immigration targets to address, well, labor shortages, because we had that issue with that in 2023 and early 2024. And of course, to support economic growth, because bringing in more people does inflate the GDP because they're going to buy, they're going to spend. That's more money going in. Unfortunately, this didn't go as intended, as these policies created new pressures in areas such as housing, healthcare, education. Rapid population inflows impacted big time already tight rental and real estate markets. It was actually much worse if you were in bigger cities like Vancouver and Toronto. Of course, this in turn prompted concerns about affordability and availability of essential services. So some smaller communities also struggled to expand healthcare infrastructure quickly enough just to accommodate the people. I actually saw a story the other day on, oh my God, Cochrane, Ontario. Or sorry, not Cochrane, Ontario, sorry, Cochrane, Alberta. It's not that far from Calgary. This is a little town that has absolutely been exploding lately. Yeah, and it was just kind of interesting. They were talking about how I think by 20, I don't think was it 2030? It might have been by 2030. They're thinking they could even hit 100,000 people the way they've been expanding. But they don't have the infrastructure for it. So we're seeing this all over the country, places where we've been struggling. So what has happened? So, one other big thing is with our shortage of doctors and nurses, this didn't help. This led to, of course, even longer wait times in local clinics and hospitals. And you can find some of the stories of people who have died in waiting rooms. It has happened. Not a lot, but they certainly sensationalize it when it does happen. Not to say that it should ever happen. It really shouldn't. Now, midway through the year, the federal and provincial governments began basically introducing targeted measures to try to alleviate these strains. Now, the federal government launched a housing acceleration fund, and this was a good fund. I'm okay with this one. And it aimed basically to incentivize municipalities to expedite new rental and affordable housing development. So that's those loans that you can get if you want to convert your basement into an apartment so that you can, give somebody a place to live. These are great. These are great solutions for sure. Now, many provinces also started strengthening their credential recognition and skills assessment framework because we had a lot of people coming from other countries coming into Canada that may have medical degrees, but we weren't recognizing them. And we got a shortage of doctors, and we just want to have a doctor go apply for a job at McDonald's or something. It's like, yeah, because we're not going to recognize it. So luckily, we're starting to we're starting to do better. I don't think we're there yet. Like quite literally, this is my solution. If you bring in a foreign doctor and it's like, okay, well, yeah, but we can't, we can't let them, operate, or we can't let them work with people here until we know their skills are up to our levels. This is what you do. You pay to train them, but you put a stipulation that they have to go to this small community or that small community, basically where the doctors are needed the most. Kind of like that Quebec thing where Quebec's saying, the doctors who, got some of the got some of the breaks in Quebec have to stay there for like 5 years. You send them to a small community for 5 years, and they have to stay there. Or either stay there or pay back whatever funding you use to get them trained. But at least that way, we're not wasting high level talent because, I honestly don't want to have a doctor asking me if I want fries with that. I really don't. And normally doctors are saying, don't get the fries. They're bad for you. So we'll just leave it at that. Right. Last on this is that as the year was coming to an end, the government did decide to finally revise their immigration targets down a little to give Canada time to catch up. Now, the interesting thing is, though, with the revision in some of these immigration targets, it kind of had one unintended consequence, and that is, as you know, with the rate cuts, one of the sectors that tends to benefit really big is, of course, REITs. But REITs had that nice big pump up until, from June into the fall. But then, of course, REITs have suffered a little bit since then. And part of this backcooling that we're currently experiencing with REITs, part of it is because of the reduction in immigration, because it sort of puts that whole focus that basically it takes focus off of the Canadian housing market, and that does impact REITs. So that's one of the reasons that we've been seeing a little bit of a backpedal on REITs. But here's the thing: it's a short-lived thing. I'm still very, very bullish on that sector in 2025. So I think that's going to be absolutely awesome. But immigration, it made a big enough impact to come in at number 5, breaking our top 5. Wow, we got a lot. We got a lot of good stories. We got a lot of good stories this year. All right. Missy is in the house with a happy Candace. No, a happy Sunday, Candace. I hope you had a Merry Christmas. Not too shabby. I did a Christmas Day live stream, so that was kind of fun. And then, we went over to Jill's sister. We had some food there and played trivia. Interestingly enough, we let ChatGPT provide all the trivia questions that night. So it actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad at all. Northern Gal says, live in a rural area. Our ER was closed 50 to 70% of the time this past year. Holy banana bread. Yeah. And that's the type of thing that we're talking about. This is the thing that will cost, unfortunately, it's going to cost people lives. If you have an emergency and your local ER is closed, the process of transporting somebody much further to an emergency center, that could make the difference. So, yeah, I would definitely like to see this as being a high priority, especially in the next election, which, of course, as everybody knows, is going to be sooner than later. Yeah, that's the fun thing. All right. Now, somebody had guessed that this next one, this number 4, was number 1. It's not, but the rise of Trump. The rise of Trump comes in at number 4. So obviously, the re-election of Trump completely out of left field. For a lot of people didn't think it was going to happen, but there were a lot of people that did. So, I give credit both sides of the equation. But Trump overall, his re-election is having an undeniably big impact on Canada in the final quarter of 2024. So his re-elections, as I said, it did surprise many Canadians, but then we all really started to take notice as he promised a good old 25% tariff on all of our Canadian exports. And he's going to do this first day in office, so January 20th. Now, this, of course, did send a little bit of panic across the land. So a lot of people are like, oh my God, what are we going to do? This is going to destroy our economy. Yes, that's probably true. But here's the big caveat. He doesn't want to tariff us 25%. He wants us to fix the border. That's the thing. It's like, I will impose this if you don't fix the border. So there's already been a lot of movement in that direction to get that border fixed. Will it be enough? That'll be the big question. And we'll see. We'll have to see, of course. Now, he caused so much panic that Mr. Trudeau made a surprise visit to Mar-a-Lago to dine with him and hopefully make some headway. Well, he did accomplish one thing. He basically got Trump to focus on us as the great state of Canada. So since then, Trump has been trolling, of course, Canada. Now Greenland and the Panama Canal as well. But yeah. Basically, right now, the government just has to focus more on resources at the border, which is what Trump wants. Let's give him what he wants. Now, another small lingering question that I think a lot of people have forgot about is he has said that if any NATO membered countries don't contribute 2% GDP to their military spending, NATO shouldn't protect them. So that's another little threat in there as well, because Canada, as you guys know, we're not close to 2% GDP military spending targets at all. So that is another thing there. Oh boy. The Trump story is just beginning, folks. Just beginning. Hopefully, and this is what's kind of nice. A lot of the premiers have stepped up to try to, help improve the border situation. So hopefully we can get this. We can get through this without, of course, any tariffs. Not needless to say, though, Trump will be an ongoing story in 2025. That is without a doubt. All right. Jonathan says, dang it. King of Day says, sorry, I'm late. Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. Bismarcky says, we gave America Wayne Gretzky. He can keep him. Gretzky. Yes, that's Trump's latest. His latest is that Gretzky should run for Prime Minister of Canada. I don't know if Trump fully understands the Canadian system, because you can't just sort of run for prime minister. You have to be in one of the parties. But that would be interesting. That would definitely be interesting. But Wayne Gretzky has come out and said no, he's not doing it. He doesn't want to. He wants nothing to do with it. So I don't think that is going to happen. But nonetheless, it was definitely interesting for sure. And as I said, Trump made our number 4 story. Yeah, what can I say? Missy says, free hockey for everyone. Oh, yes. I have a feeling the NHL will not allow free hockey. Northern Gal says, Trump is trolling. His target is Justin Trudeau. Any job he takes has a purpose. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Trump has no intentions of annexing Canada, but he is definitely trolling Justin. And boy, no, Justin, don't worry, Justin's coming up. He did make the top 10. There should be no doubt about that at all. But all right, so we got 3 stories left. What is number 2? Yes, we're going into the Canadian economy and the whole, are we in a recession? Are we not in this recession? I call this skirting the recession. So throughout all of this year, so 2024, Canada's economy has sputtered. That's a good way to say it. There have been mounting headwinds that stirred debate over whether the country had slipped into an unofficial recession. And I know many of you here believe we're in an unofficial recession. And I don't believe that we're in an unofficial recession, but I definitely think it's a possibility. I think it really, really is a possibility. So while, of course, we have not met the technical definition of a recession, so that, of course, is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, the national economy nonetheless experienced a protracted period of sluggish expansion. So yeah, it hasn't been good. Now, there's some reasons for this, of course. We have the high interest rate the first half of the year. That, of course, weighed down on the consumer spending, business investment, and, of course, the housing market. Key indicators such as retail sales and housing starts softened, while some of the corporate earnings in some sectors trended downward. So everything was behaving like we were in a recession. Now, the labor market, though, did stay relatively stable with unemployment rates inching up moderately until pretty much the end of the year. And many economists were even suggesting that Canadians were feeling recession like pressure, sort of like, hurricane force winds without a hurricane. We were getting recession force winds without a recession. And for the most part, Canadians' real purchasing power declined. I think everybody faced it a little bit. Now, there's this other thing called GDP per capita. And because of our high immigration, so that story's filtering back in a bit, we experience historically strong population gains in recent years, and faster growing population numbers will, of course, dilute your capita GDP growth. So in 2024, modest population growth for Canada's overall GDP. Once you divide that, though, by the country's rising population, real GDP per capita, it dipped into the negative territory. And in fact, it was negative most of the year. I think we had one positive towards the end on a month, not on a quarter, but on a month. This explains why, of course, many Canadians, despite living in an economy that isn't officially in a recession, still report feeling that recession-like financial strain. The wage increases were overshadowed by higher living costs, and fewer improvements in day-to-day prosperity existed at all. Now, of course, the overall sluggish economy has influenced the Bank of Canada, and we're going to talk about them coming up as well. But yeah, it has been a rough year. And here's the thing, though. If we didn't have that crazy amount of immigration, we probably would have hit. Our GDP probably would have sunk low enough to hit the technical recession. So when we say unofficial recession, that's why I'm saying it's a very good possibility. I won't call it, but I think anybody who does want to say we're in an unofficial recession, I totally will agree with them. Just without calling it, it's like, yeah, we got recession-like feelings, and as of course the end of the year hit, and we got more sluggishness, and in addition to that more sluggishness, we had our GDP, our unemployments really start to push up a little bit. Now we're at a point where it's like, this is going to be interesting moving into 2025. I don't think we're going to get an official recession. At least in the first half. I think we will see, we might see one by the end of the year, or at least early 2026, but oh boy, it is still, I think it'll still feel recession-like to a certain extent. Some of these rate cuts as they filter in are going to definitely help, and we will see some more 25 in the new year for sure. Misty says, what happens to the stock market in a recession? It depends. Like in a recession, you will see, you'll see, you normally will see some lagging stocks. You'll normally see a bit of a downward movement. So I wouldn't be surprised if we move into a recession, we probably are going to move into a bear market. We might actually even move into a bear market before the recession, maybe. And this is kind of what ends up happening, because the interesting thing is, normally when we go into a recession with bear market, generally that bear market usually flips around the pretty much around the middle of the recession, begins to climb out. And a lot of times moving it back into a bull market is one of the things that helps get us out of that recession. Now that, of course, here's the thing. It depends on how long the recession is. Um, I don't think, and this is one of these interesting things. I think if we go into a recession, there's a lot, it's going to be very hard to predict. I don't think I can make a prediction on how long that recession will be at this point, just because we have too many pieces on the boards. We have too many strange things going on right now. And I don't want to say strange as in like spooky, or, the whole stuff with the drones or stuff like that. Um, we have a little bit of unpredictability with what's happening between, well, first of all, with our government. Now, not if, when the conservatives take over, if they can start getting that deficit down, if they can start getting a little bit of fiscal control, that could certainly help make a shorter recession. But they've got to, they got to act on it. They got to act on it. They also got to get rid of this whole foolishness with tariffs and stuff like that. Um, learn to work with Trump. And Trump is, he's not a hard person to work with. You just have to sort of, for one, you have to realize he's coming from a business perspective. And two, one of the things that he likes the most is attention. If you're giving him the right amount of attention, you tend to stay on his happy side. So that's just something to think about. We got two left. We have two left. Holy banana bread. I can't believe we're getting through them this fast. All right. Number 2 is not Trudeau. It's actually the Bank of Canada and the rate cuts. So the rate cuts were once again a big force on the year. So we entered 2024 after one of the most aggressive rate hike seasons we've ever experienced. So the goal coming into 2024 was to tame inflation, as it was sitting at 3.4% at the end, basically right at the end of 2023. Now, keep in mind, though, in 2023, at one point, it was, it entered 2023 at 6.3%, made it all the way up to 8.1% the summer of 2023. So, yeah, we did a lot. I mean, the Bank of Canada really pulled that inflation rate down with some of their rate hikes. Now, when we did enter 2024, the battle was close to being won, as we as we had already finished all of the rate hikes. We entered with an interest rate of 5%, and then they held it steady. They held it steady as they watched inflation shrink from 3.4 down to 2.7 by June, and that's when they were finally ready to begin those rate cuts. So they did start in June with a 25 basis point cut. Then they did another 25 in July and another 25 in September. So that was really, really good. We saw some of those start to really help out utilities, REITs, definitely both of them boomed with those cuts. And now inflation did impact the REITs, but they will be back. They will be back. Now, their inflation target was 2%, and in September, they did drop it. They dropped it down to 1.6%. So then it was time to bring out the big guns, and we saw our fifth. We saw our first 50 basis point cut, and this was great. But inflation did tick back a little bit after that cut. It went back up to 2%. And interestingly enough, at that point, things were looking like that December cut was going to be a 25 basis points. But thanks to unemployment ticking up, GDP ticking down, and inflation ticking down again, the 50 basis point cut came in December, taking that overnight. So the rate went down. At the beginning of 2024, it was at 5%. It went down to 3.25%. And we will see more 25 basis point cuts in 2024. And as I said, utilities are probably the big winner when it comes to 2024, when it comes to those rate cuts. REITs did well, but then they did pull back as well because of a lot of the immigration stuff that's going on. But the beautiful thing is, and this is one thing I do believe, I think they're still going to have a very strong 2025. So this pullback, if anything, is for me, I'm using it as a chance to load up on some of them because I do expect them to do really well as we move deeper into the year. Oh boy. That takes us to our number one news driver. We all know who the next beaver is going to be, don't we? I think we do. I think we do. Oh, let's pull them up. Let's pull them up. So the number one news driver of 2024, well, the fall of Justin Trudeau. That's what I'm calling it. He technically hasn't fallen per se, but he's in the process of it. Justin Trudeau had a pretty rough year. So in early 2024, our good old prime minister friend, his political standing began to erode significantly, accumulating into what many people are calling the fall of his leadership. So for several years, of course, Trudeau's Liberal minority had relied on that formal supply and trade agreement with the NDP to pass their key legislation and to maintain confidence in the House of Commons. They did see a lot of good bills come through. Like I think dental care is a good bill. There's also pharmacare that's as well coming through. Or I don't know if that one will have enough time to actually make it very far. Now, this arrangement did initially provide a lot of stability, but the alliance began to grow a little bit more tenuous as good old Jagmeet Singh was pushing for stronger social spending and deeper reforms than the Liberals were prepared to deliver. So the milk started to get a little sour. And another big issue is, if you remember going back to the strikes, the Liberals sort of not letting unions do their thing and, ending strikes early, that as well. The NDP was not happy about that. So that, of course, led to this whole big dramatic incident where Jagmeet Singh decided he was going to rip up the agreement. But but that was only in talk. I never actually saw him rip up the agreement. That would have been more dramatic. I would have respected it more if he came out to the press and actually held up the agreement and actually tore it in front of the camera, but he did not. So he figuratively ripped up the agreement while, it didn't feel like it was ripped up because they were still supporting the government on the non-confidence vote. So, there was still support there. And there's rumors that Jagmeet wants to wait for his pension before going voted non-confidence. Other rumors I've heard, which might be more plausible, is just that the NDP coffer is not ready for an election. So that's probably that might be the real reason. But nonetheless, agreement was null and void. But they were still supporting the government. Now, poll-wise, oh boy, the Liberals continued to fall all through the year. They did maintain a distant second place in the polls. Now, interestingly enough, a recent poll that I looked at came out on, I think, December 22nd. When they translated to seats in the House of Commons, if an election were held on that day, it actually showed the bloc winning official opposition status, with the Liberals coming in behind them. So that was interesting. Oh, excuse me. Now, Trudeau, of course, had to struggle through the entire year. All kinds of criticism absolutely being thrown at him. In fact, even right now on his vacation, there is a video out there. I watched it where somebody at I don't know if it's like it's one of the ski resorts, so it could be Whistler, not sure, but somebody up there in BC basically approached him and said, "Hey, Mr. Prime Minister," and he was like, "Oh, hi." And they're like, "Get the hell out of BC." I think they actually might have used a more stronger word than that. And he was just like, "Oh, well, have a nice day." Da da da. But yeah, I mean, he's getting more and more of that public heckling from people. But more importantly, he has been getting a lot of that from his own party. So there's a lot of people that have been absolutely the support's been plummeting. So he did so as I said, he struggled throughout the year to keep a lid on his growing criticism. Several high-profile cabinet members have become increasingly vocal about the direction of the government, including, of course, his once gal pal number one ally, Chrystia Freeland. Um, she finally stepped aside and said, "Nope, nope, I don't agree with where you're taking the finances at this point." She had come up with that 41 billion dollar deficit guardrail, and he just wanted to plow right through it. Um, she also had got a Zoom call where he said he was going to replace her. So she walked out. As I think this is probably fresh in everyone's mind. So as and even before she walked out, the fact that she was having a tiff with Trudeau, the news was already on it, and so were the parties. They were grilling him in question period about it. Um, yeah, it's just one of these situations where more and more people started supporting Christia in this whole mess as she walked out. Of course, it was chaotic. The end of the sitting session for 2024 was nothing short of being total chaotic. Um, and we're expecting the same in 2025. Now, an interesting thing is that a growing number of Liberal backbenchers have been joining Freeland in expressing doubts about Trudeau's leadership. And that number is growing. It's getting bigger every day. It's at the point that, he's got to do something. He absolutely has to. His grip on power is weakening big time. Now, just as Parliament ended, Jagmeet Singh now was vowed to vote against the government in a vote of non-confidence in January when the government returns. So January 22nd, that's when the government comes back from their winter vacation. So basically a few days after Trump is sworn in. So hopefully Trudeau is still, between the skiing, trying to prevent those tariffs, trying to take care of what needs to be done. So will he step down before then? We can only hope, right? There's a couple of things I think that can happen. For one, the Conservatives are. I think on January 7th, there's a committee meeting that they're going to basically use some parliamentary. I don't want to say. I'm just going to say rules. They're going to play the parliamentary rules to get a vote of non-confidence that gets pushed in through that committee, so it would then get voted when the Parliament returns. I think the vote would actually fall on January 27th. So by January 27th, we could have that vote of non-confidence, and we could have a new election called. So that is pretty interesting. Now, another thing that could happen, though, is if Trudeau, while he's up there skiing, takes his long walk in the snow, he could always come back. And before January 27th, like on January 22nd, or even before January 22nd, he could always prorogue the government and then have a leadership. They would have a leadership. They just, do their leadership drive, find somebody new. That could happen. That could very well happen. So, if they have, if he prorogues, then of course we won't get the election until after they've had a leadership. So they could prorogue it for probably, I'd say, a month and a half will probably be what you would see, maybe 2 months at the latest. So that could be interesting. That would push it into a spring election. But I think either scenario, we're probably looking at an election by the spring, or maybe towards the tail end of winter if he doesn't prorogue. If he decides not to step down, then, he will get voted out. He will get voted out for sure. So the drama on the Hill. It is absolutely our number one story of the year. So we'll have to see if we get that leadership convention or not. But it's going to be interesting. Nonetheless, I think 2025 is going to be an interesting year. All right. Let's see. Northern Gal says Public Accounts Committee. Not sure what that is in reference to. But Paul says hello. Hello, Paul. So yeah, guys, those are the top stories. What do you guys think? Do you think I missed something? Do you think I got the right order? All of that fun stuff. Oh, that's so good. All right, let's see. Oh, that's the committee where they are tabling the non confidence motion. Oh, right. Oh, committee. Got it. Yep. Yes, that is the one. Thank you, Northern Gal. Woohoo. So, yeah, I think it's pretty smart. I mean, I think it's smart on Poilievre's thing. And something I was watching as well in the news. One of the big arguments is that here you have Trudeau who's trying to negotiate or trying to affect Trump when he's basically on his final days. So, with we get a new government in, in many senses, you've got Polyev who can come in and say, well, I've got a 4-year mandate, and that's going to be, I think, a little bit more, like Trudeau's going to be like, oh, okay, I'll be working with you all the way through then. So I think that will work a little bit better, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I just hope it gets taken care of sooner than later. That's the way I'm looking at. I still would like to see a proroguement, but I would have liked to have seen it like before the whole Christmas, right at the beginning of the Christmas break. I would have liked to have seen it then. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. All right. Let's see. Wayne says it's too late for the Liberals. If they had convened leadership convention last summer, they might have had a chance. The Liberal Party will be decimated. Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is the thing. This is kind of where I'm at, Wayne. If they have a leadership convention now and get somebody new in there, they will win some votes back. Not a lot. They won't win enough. It's still going to be an overwhelming conservative majority, but they might be able to maintain party status, and they might even be able to eke out official opposition with a new leader. If Trudeau doesn't leave and does make it to, does run in the next election, right now I've heard there's polls that say he's not even going to win his own seat. So that's not good for the party at all. And, as a fan of democracy, I would like to, I don't want to see the Liberal Party decimated. I really don't. But I don't want to see Trudeau still around. I want Trudeau gone. I want a new leader in, because that's how democracy works. You've got, you got official opposition that tries to keep the government, on keel per se. Because if you have anytime you have power that's kind of unchecked, it's to me that's never a good thing. Not saying that Polyev is going to go mad with power or anything. It's just overall democracy. I think it's healthy to have good opposition, good debates. Although if you watch the House of Commons, sometimes I wonder how anything ever gets solved, because it's like nobody answers the question they're being asked ever. It's just yeah, it's just not good. It's not good. It's like they have a one answer, like a canned answer, and they will answer that for everything. Like, it depends on what it is. Like back when they had the fires in Nova Scotia, anytime they were asked anything, they would come back and they'd be like, oh, well, there's fires in Nova Scotia and we're worried about that. They may have been asked a question about about some spending on something else completely different. But it always came back to that same answer. And it's like they all had the exact canned answer. And it works both ways. So I don't want to make it sound like the Liberals are doing this to everybody else. No, the Conservatives do it to the Liberals. They have the same canned answers. And that's why I always wonder, how do they get things done? It never used to be quite as the way it is now. But yeah, it's there. So, but that's question period for you. Oh, well. Wayne says, Candace, have you increased your U.S. stock component in your portfolio? The loonie is heading lower for a lot of reasons. I went all in U.S. last January. I have a little bit. I have a little bit in the U.S. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Right now, the Canada dollar is in trouble because the US economy is strong enough that they can pause on their rate cuts. And even right now on their last rate cut, the 25 basis points in December, it wasn't unanimous. There was at least one person on the member who was like, we should start pausing now. So they're ready to pause. And right now, I think the market has 2 rate cuts priced in for the year in the US. Problem is in Canada, right now with the economy and with this being so sluggish, they kind of can't pause yet. We're not going to get any more 50 basis points. We're going to see 25 basis point cuts, but we're going to get further and further away, out of step with the US rate. And that will hurt the Canadian dollar because a lot of investors, they'll look at our weak interest and they'll be like, well, we're better off investing in the US where the interest rates are a bit higher. So yeah, we're going to lose business. We will lose investment. That, of course, all of that weakens the Canadian dollar even more. So right now, we have broken under 70. I think we were at 69.50 the last time I looked. I can see that going even lower. I don't know, but here's the thing. How low could we go? It's hard to say. I'll definitely be worried if we start if we start dropping below 65. But yeah, it's definitely something that will happen. So, here's the thing. And this is kind of an interesting thing. So in your situation, Wayne has invested in US stocks. Wonderful. Fantastic. Here's a beautiful thing. I mean, with the US stocks as high as they are, it's going to look really good in his portfolio when he converts that over to Canadian, looking at the value. But if you are investing in Canadian stocks, it's not necessarily that you're going to be in trouble because you are. I mean, your stocks are going to rebound, but some areas where you'll get a little bit less pow for your buck is when you're investing in Canadian stocks that are investing in American stocks, because that currency conversion will have a bit more of an impact in there. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It'll definitely be fun. Now, there are things that you can, if you want to completely get out of the game, you can certainly invest in something like, Bitcoin, for example. That is priced in the US dollar. But here's that thing. Once again, you're still going to have to pay. You're still buying it in Canadian dollars. It's only going to get you so much. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Like if you could see this coming. So if you actually foresaw that the Canadian dollar was going to crash this way and you moved a bunch of your money into US, into stocks, things like that, that's fantastic. I mean, now here's the thing is, if you want to really make some money, if you really want to make some money out of it, one of the ways that you could do that is once our Canadian dollar gets to the bottom, and basically once we're completely finished with the rate cuts, and that probably will be around the bottom. That might be a time to then convert some of that American back to Canadian because you're going to get more for it. So that's just a thought. It just really comes down to, I tend to try not to play the market, the currencies that much, but it is something you can look at. All right. Let's see. Dave says January 7th. Yes. Good old January 7th. Paul says, best wishes for the new year. When does your potential 5 picks for 2025 come out? January 7th. Somehow Dave answered you before it, before. It must be yeah, I don't know. On mine, it shows Dave's answer to your question before your question. That's funny. It's like Dave is a psychic now, but I love it. All right, are we down to 68? Oh dear. Oh, yeah, fun. All right, let's see. The DLR ETF is a way to hedge. Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely ways that you can certainly hedge your, hedge against what is going to happen. But I mean, if you don't want to, and if you're not worried about stuff like that, if you don't want to sort of get involved in the whole currency hedging and things like that, then, I say when things go south, You want to stick to some of your, if you're thinking stocks, you want to stick to stuff that's going to be more blue chip, more resilient. That would be things like, I'm still throwing CNR in here. I know that they've had a rough, a rough quarter, but things like CNR, Dollarama, your big stores like Loblaws, Metro, um, even the banks, those are not bad options to be involved in. And I know the banks have got a big mortgage wave coming this year, but keep in mind they do have a lot of money put aside for those losses. And what is nice is that the initial waves that came in, the losses were a little bit less than they had anticipated. So that's a good thing too. That doesn't mean that it'll be the same with the wave in 2025, but we'll definitely have to see what is going to happen. Let's see, Dave says insurance doing good. Yeah, things like Manulife Financial. I love Manulife Financial. So there's definitely options out there to protect yourself from the coming year. But I'm hoping, and this is the thing. Right now, it feels like Canada doesn't have anybody at the rudder. We're just sort of drifting around. So hopefully, as soon as we can get this whole election thing over with and done, that's going to start improving things. It won't happen overnight. It's not like Polyev is going to come get sworn in as prime minister and the next day everything's going to be rosy. It's going to take them time. It took the Liberals 8 years to get where we're at now. So you got to give them some time. Let's see. Wayne says, I spent 5 months in the U.S., so I have another reason for building my U.S. portfolio. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I mean, I think the U.S. is I think everybody should have exposure one way or another to the U.S. There's no doubt about it. So putting aside the whole currency thing, there's lots of ways you can have exposure. There's lots of ETFs that invest in US. So like your VFE, things like that. Things like XEQT, they invest everywhere, but you get good exposure to the US in that as well. And then remember, we get all those CDRs too. If you want to invest in if you want a piece of Microsoft, there's a CDR for that. They're really good too. I definitely like them as well. And then, of course, there are some really good ETFs over on the American side too. Like VOO is pretty much the US version of VFE. I mean, but keep in mind, if you're gonna hold a US anything that pays you a lot of dividends, then you kind of want to put it in your RRSP just so that you're not paying the IRS. The IRS does not need your money. But here's the thing, though, and this is kind of where I sit. I don't mind holding a U.S. dividend stock if it's not a really big dividend in my TFSA. I know I'm losing that 15%, but 15% of a really small amount, I'm usually okay with it, especially when it's something that I'm expecting to grow from the stock's growth or the ETF's growth. I'm not really looking for the dividends. So one example of that is like SCHD. I got that in the 0 to 100K, and I'm fine. It's got a small dividend. Now, an interesting fact, though, right now I'm running one thing in my TFSA that is not normally a stock I would say ever, or an ETF I would say to hold in your TFSA, and that's Misty, MSTY. They've got a crazy 100 and something percent dividend. While Bitcoin is pumping right now, I'm just riding it to milk, not to milk, but to just expand the size of the TFSA at the same time as, I'm just getting some crazy growth. I'll get out of it eventually. It's not for me a long-term thing. It's a short-term play for sure. But, I am losing 15% of that dividend. I know I'm losing 15% of that dividend, but it's still a crazy good amount that I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if I was doing it for me and not so much for the challenge, I probably would hold that like in an RRSP, just for that. Northern Gas says, just wanted to say thank you for the membership. I was looking through your back catalog. Are there any videos you recommend to watch first? I've invested for years, but still lack understanding. Um, that's a good question. I think there's a playlist that's called FIQ, so financial intelligence, and that has a lot of the videos that have basics on it. So that might be a good place. Um, yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that would be the best place to start. The other thing I always say too is here's what I say: if you're new, and you are new, so watch some videos. So watch some of the FIQ and make a list of questions, right? And bring them to these. Bring your questions here, and then I can answer them. That's always a good. I think that's a good way to go for sure. So definitely cool. Um, all right, let's see here. Michael says MFA pays 35 each quarter and the book value of 1842. Oh, interesting. King of Day. Hi, Candace. My transfer to Wealthsimple is done. Nice. So I am qualified for an iPhone 16 or a MacBook Air with M2 chip. As an Apple user, which do you think will be easier to sell? 100% the iPhone 16 probably would be easier to sell. Just because the thing is, a MacBook Air, you're going to have people who are into Macs will be the ones who would be more interested in the MacBook Air. But when you go to the iPhone 16, you have, of course, the core Mac users, but you also have a lot of other people that are into using iPhones. They may not be Mac users per se, but they would love the iPhone. So you have potentially a bigger customer base for the iPhone 16 than you'd have for the MacBook Air. All right. All right. Thank you for your answer. We'll do that. Yeah, no problem. That's what I do. That's the thing. Sometimes I have people that will come in and especially I've seen this a few times with new people. They come in, they're like, I'm afraid to ask my question because it's so easy. People might look down or make fun of me. I'm like, no, not in this community. If somebody makes fun, like if somebody made fun, let's say you asked a question right now and King of Day all of a sudden made fun of you. I'd have a talking to King of Day because King of Day would never do it. One, I only said King of Day because King of Day was right above you. But if anybody ever made fun of somebody in here, they're if they're a regular, they're going to get a talking to. They'll get blocked for that day, but then they'll have a talking to from me. That's a one way to get a one-on-one with me, right? It's not the type of one-on-one you want, though. But if anyone ever says anything, comes in and says some really mean stuff, not just saying like, if they're saying, "Oh, you're dumb for answering that question," I'll have a talk with them. But if somebody came in and said, just called you some kind of a derogatory term, they're gone forever. Gone forever. I don't tolerate that at all because what 9 says, oh no, I thought 9 said the only dumb question is the question not asked. I totally believe that, but 9 says I ask dumb questions all the time. Yeah, absolutely. Because you know what? If you have a dumb question, you're probably not the only person. You may be the only person brave enough to say, "Hey, I got my question." So yeah, a lot of times when I answer, and keep in mind, guys, you guys are the people who are here live. There's a whole bunch of people that are going to watch this after the fact, and they may have the same question that you just asked. So they might be sitting there and they're like, "Oh my God, Northern Gal, thank you. I was curious about that." So it's cool. Let's say okay with that. I appreciate humor. I've told the story many times, but that's kind of my philosophy is that if you interlace a topic that's boring with humor, it makes it less boring and it makes it more memorable. It makes it easier to connect with it. So that's and finance. Let's face it. It's funny. I've gone to a lot of finance channels where I've seen emotionalist people go on and on about some finance stuff, and I'm like, I understand this stuff, but it makes me want to go to sleep. So I always try, let's have fun. Let's have fun and learn at the same time. So and even if it's at my expense, I'm okay with that. Let's see. Peed Off Canadian says, love the channel. Thanks for all the great advice. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I believe that's your first comment. I don't recall. I remember. I remember this. I remember your name because it's, once again, it's not normal. And I mean that in a good way, right? Because it's different off the norm. It's like, yeah, I would remember if I seen Peed Off Canadian before, I'd remember. I'd be like, oh, ooh, that's kind of neat. Lane says, you will lose 15%, but you gain large on the currency. To convert US to Canada, you get 1.41 for each US dollar. Yeah. And also keep in mind, too, if you are in that situation that you do want to start investing everything in US, you want to make sure that you're either using something like Quest Trade or National Bank, or I think Royal Bank as well. I would even say National Bank because they have no they have no commissions. And then do the Norbit, do a Norbit Scambit over there, because that way there you're not paying that currency conversion fee, so you can get your money moved over faster. And I think, you know, that to me probably is the most efficient way. But I have heard of other people say they had other ways of doing it as well. I think somebody said that they had an account or they had a broker that would allow them to transfer US dollars directly in from their bank account if they move things over on their bank. So there are ways to do it nice and cheap. So always something to keep in mind. All right. Whew. All right, guys, we're at about an hour and a half. So you got your, I'll put out the call for the last minute questions. Not to say that we're leaving right now, because normally I will ask for those last minute questions. And sometimes we go an hour. Sometimes we do. So I'm going to have my coffee. What do you guys think of whatever questions pop into your heads? I will, though. I will get rid of Justin Trudeau, though. Just give me a second there. All right. There we go. Bang. Well, that didn't get rid of Justin Trudeau, but it put me where I wanted to be for when Trudeau goes bye-bye. There we go. No more Justin Trudeau. Awesome. All right. Cool. All right. While you guys are coming up with questions here, I just want to head over here to the Discord for a moment. So, guys, we've got a couple of things coming up. So, as you guys may or may not know, oh, this is us right now. 8 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to do a New Year's live stream. So, I normally don't stay up until like midnight Eastern. So we pick some place. I think last year it was someplace in Brazil that we did the countdown for. So we'll pick a time zone and we'll do a countdown, usually about an hour in or so to the stream. But what we do is we're also going to look at my predictions for 2020. And these are not stock predictions, but just overall predictions. They're more news predictions than anything else. We're going to look at those predictions for 2024 that I did last year, and we're gonna mark them up together. We'll determine how I did. Oh boy, last year I think I got 7 out of 10, right? I have no clue what I put in this year, so maybe we got 7. I'll be happy with 7. I'd be happy with 7. But yeah, and you guys get to decide. It was actually funny. There was a couple last year, I think, that I thought were misses, but everybody in the audience was like, no, that's close enough to be a hit. So, but I'm probably a harder marker than you guys are. So, but I go with what you guys say. So we'll see if I hit again this year, but that's coming up. And I will, of course, drop on January 3rd my new predictions for 2025. So those will be 10 predictions. We'll see how that works. And right here on the 7th, that, of course, is the top 5 top 5 total return stocks to watch in 2025. So I'll be doing that. And then there was something else in here too. Oh, right. Also on New Year's Eve, the members' choice video. So the members voted, and they want a video on bank ETFs banks versus bank ETFs versus covered calls versus covered call with leverage. So we're going to break that all down for you. So which will make you the most money? I did do it with an equal weighting. I'm just going to put that out there. So, if you bought an equal weighting of banks, would you have a bigger return at the end of the year than if you bought, let's say, a covered call, an equal weighted covered call fund. And I will tell you, this time I did something I don't normally do. I did all the math to reinvest all the dividends along the way. So these ones are not just total returns. These are total returns with all of the dividends reinvested. So that was fun. That was fun. So yeah, you get to see that on Tuesday. If you're a channel member, though, you'll get to see that on Monday. So because channel members see everything a day early, and honestly, I'll probably have that up in the morning for the channel members. Let's see. Have you covered your opinion on Enbridge? What do you think of them utilities? Well, let me tell you something here. I'm going to give you something right now. All right. So after the show, this is a video for you to watch. This actually, I released this video here on December 20th. It's a deep dive into Enbridge, so it'll give you much more. But overall, overall, I do like Enbridge. Utilities have been doing really well with the rate cuts. So, and that's because, well, they carry a lot of debt. Utilities are traditional for that because they're always usually, especially in the case of Enbridge, they have been expanding and buying more stuff. So they've been using debt to finance a lot of that. So definitely these rate cuts are great for Enbridge. Enbridge has been doing fantastic since the rate cut season began back in June. So I do think they're going to have a good 2025. But if you want more information, check out the link I just dropped below. All right. How do I find you on the Discord servers? Great question, Northern Gal. All right, let me help you out here. All right, I'm just going to grab it. And you know what I'll do? Let me edit this because they try to give you one that expires in 7 days. I like never. All right, here we go. All right, so here we go. Let me drop in this. So the second link is for the Discord service. So the one right underneath Verena. Now, Northern Gal, once you get to the Discord, all right, once you get into the server, you will see, let's actually go into the normal server here. I think you come into right here. It's a nerdy salute. JJ are my mod. He named some of these. Over on this side, if you're using a PC, like a desktop or a laptop, you'll see me at the top right up here. So that is me. This is what I recommend. And I'll tell you why here in a second. If you guys come and join the server, just come over to me, right click. Now you can't actually, the option isn't there because I am me, but let's say Beluga was me. Just right click and click add friend. And I'll tell you why. I usually say to do that because there are fake me's trolling along on Discord, trying to trick you into investing with them. So normally, from what people have told me, they will say, "Oh, I have this crypto deal. If you send me like 500 in Bitcoin, I'll invest it for you, and I'll keep 10%. And I'll give you 90%." I'm not going to do that with you ever. I will never do that to you. I'm never going to invest for you. So that it's not me. It's not me. But the reason I say this is that, you know what? If you come over and you just friend me, I'll friend you back. Then you know it's not me that's reaching out to you. And you know what? If you ever do get a funky message and you're not sure, reach out to me. Just reach out to me. I'll clarify it for you right away. Because the last thing I want is scammers taking advantage of you. And here's the beautiful thing. I'm incredibly approachable. So I know a lot of times you go to a YouTube channel, you write a reply to a video and you never hear anything again. Not me. I try to answer everything. And, if you're over on the Discord and you reach out and you got a question, I'll answer it. I'm not going to ignore you guys ever. That's just not how I roll. All right. Tim says, tried to get my American hippie half brother into stocks over Christmas, got him to open an M1 finance account and explain to him what a Roth IRA is. Any tips on dealing with hippies? Ah, that's a good question. Tim, you always have good good questions. You know what? Here's my advice. If you want to deal with a hippie, treat them like you would treat anybody else. That's the way I look at it. Oh, look at that. I just got a message live on the air. Um, or no, oh no, somebody else just, oh yeah, here we go. Everyone welcome Northern Gal. All right, let's do that. Um, all right. Well, I don't think it's letting me. I'll just give you a happy face. There you go. All right. Northern Gal found us. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you know what? To me, it doesn't care. I don't care if somebody's a hippie or they've got pink hair that I can see from miles away. And I found them because I was looking for the lighthouse, but I'm okay with that. Just treat them like people. Give them the information. They have to make up their own minds, right? It's simply like you guys. I can give you stock information, but I can't tell you go buy this stock. You have to make up your mind, and it's your money, so you really should make up your mind. Verena says hi, everyone. And then let's see. Thank you, Candace, for the membership for the month. Oh yes, absolutely. Actually, it wasn't even me. I can't remember who. Uh, was it Funny Book? I think it was Funny Books. I think Funny Books gifted you that membership. So yeah, there you go. Yeah, and that's something you guys can do, by the way. Because as you guys know, I like to gift memberships. But you guys can gift memberships too if you want to. It's up to you. No pressure, but it is one of those things you can do. And one of the things I'm hoping, it hasn't happened yet. I am hoping that YouTube gives me the power to directly target memberships. Because sometimes, for example, I might have somebody who's in here all the time, and they really, really, really deserve a membership, but I can't gift it to them because basically, if I want to gift a membership, it's 100% random, no control on who it goes to. So that's just one of those things that I wish I had control. I know that, and this was one of those I think features that that you have on not Discord, sorry, Twitch, and they kind of copied it from that. But Twitch, you can target. So I'm hoping to get that ability. There's actually going to be another interesting thing coming up soon too. You know how I don't know how many of you have been on Twitch, but they have these things called bits, and they have other little things where you can buy these little things, and you know I don't know what you call them, but and then you can sort of like drop bits here and that. I think they're planning to bring something similar to that to here. I'm not sure how that is going to fully work. It's supposed to roll out, I think, in 2025. There's also, just now that we're on to YouTube, there's also this other interesting thing they're going to be rolling out too, where you can basically, oh my God, what the heck is it called again? It's kind of like this little rep thing that you get so much of it where it's almost like a super like. So for example, you can like and you can put these points or something into it, and it gives the algorithm more reason to push out. And they're doing this to help smaller channels basically get more notability, because if enough people put in some of these extra points, then I'm trying to remember the name of it. Something I don't know, Buzz, or no, not Buzz. I forget. I'll let you guys know when I remember. But yeah, I know that that's another thing that they're bringing out. They're doing all kinds of other things. Nine says, "Are you allowed to stream on other platforms, or does YouTube not allow it?" No, I think I'm allowed to stream on anything I want. As far as I know. So yeah, I know that there are some platforms that don't like it if you're streaming on double platforms, but as far as I know, YouTube is fine with it. I know a lot of YouTubers that also stream like on Facebook, um, then maybe on Twitch, for example, as well. So you know, interesting. Jay says, "Is there a better cash ETF with much better returns? I still like cash since it has a dividend at the end of the month." Yeah, I'm still using cash right now. I know there's also PSA, but I think that's pretty much around the same amount. But I'm going to keep my eyes open to see if I can find a better one. Let's see. Hi, Candace. Do we have time for a little Q&A about stocks? We'll ask your stock questions. Sure. Why not? Yeah, no, I mean, guys, even when we're doing things like this, like, like the top 10 or whatever, you're always allowed to answer your questions. You ask your questions. If you're going to answer your own questions, what's the point of asking them, right? But yeah, for sure. Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. Let's see what else I got over here. Ah, so whoops. Ooh, guys, I'll show you this. We were talking a little bit about the scammers. All right, here's one right here. You notice it looks like my profile. It's got my image. It says Mountain Finance. But if you notice the name, it's dot Mountain Finance dot. So they put all of these extra little dots in on both sides. So, this here is this here's a scammer, 100%. I've banned them from the server, but they make more. They always keep making more. All right. Muggsy wants to know, is the cash ETF inside the TFSA? Yeah. So here's the thing. I kind of want to, let's just do this here for a second. Give me a second here. Oh, there's the beaver mug, by the way, guys. All right. I need a whiteboard. I need a whiteboard. Here we go. All right. So one of the things I find with a cash ETF is if you're holding it in your TFSA. Whoops, there we go. Give me the draw thing. Give me the draw. All right. So we'll just say, whoa, no, I want that. There we go. I'll just call it C1. So cash one. So if you're holding that in, and of course, you're putting your money into it, fantastic, right? But if you put your money in and then you see a buying opportunity, so let's say we have the dip down here. Oh, I'll call it the dip. The problem here is if you go and then buy the dip, and this is all inside of your TFSA. Well, what happens is that if you go to put more money back into it, you can get flagged by, of course, the CRA. They might say, oh, you're day trading, because your behavior is where you're buying and selling in a faster amount of time. So what some people will do to avoid this is they might actually hold a couple. So they may have like a C2, and they may even have like a C3. So that way there, when when one of them, let's say, for example, you were filling C1 and then you bought with C1, at that point you start filling C2. And you want to wait, of course, 30 days, so you're not getting flagged before you move back to C1. And if you do use this one right away because there's another dip, then, and it's not 30 days yet to go there, then you would use your C3. So you can do it by using that. But now keep in mind, most people are not in this situation. Like right now, I have one in my TFSA because I'm not planning to buy. Like if I get a little dip right now, like we had a dip, I'm not buying it for that. I'm saving it for. All right, here we go. So this is your market, right? So here is a bear market. Sorry, a bull market, BU, and here's a bear market, BE. So bull, BU, whoops, and bear. I really should get a writing instrument for this. But what I'm doing is as I move through the bull market, I'm adding into my, well, in this case here, C1. And when we go into a bear market, I will then use it for that. So I'll use it in that bear market. And at the end of that bear market, I should have nothing left in here mostly. I might have a little bit more, but I'll mostly have nothing. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy going up here, and that's going to go back into the basket. And then I will use that basket to buy in here. I will add to the basket when we're back into a. So what happens is I'm adding to my cash position throughout the bull market, getting it bigger. And then I use it when I'm in the bear market. In the bear market, I dollar cost average into, those stocks that I really, really love. And that's what I do. That's the strategy that I use, for the simple reason that, when times are good, you're not buying everything at all-time highs all the time. You're basically, I'm still buying stuff. Like I'm still buying stuff, but I am taking a portion in here. Like normally, I'm just going to put buy versus cash. So normally at the very beginning of a bear market, I might still be spending 99%. Maybe I'm putting 1% in. As we get deeper in, this number, the cash number starts getting bigger. Like I start putting more into cash. So if we have a really long bear market, we could get to a point where we could even get to a point where I'm only, dollar cost averaging was 75% of my entry into it. And then 25% might be going into into cash. So that's just kind of the way I run it. All right. Now I saw the next question here. So let's go. Can you explain covered calls? How do they work? How does it affect us? Are we obligated to sell at certain points? All right. Well, covered call, very, very simple. All right. I'm just going to go CC for covered calls. So normally what you're going to do is, you're going to do either a long or a short. We'll look at longs because I think you get the general idea. So you might have an asset. So let's say, for example, we have BCO. We'll say that this is the stock Banana Co. So Banana Co. We'll say that currently it is $20 a share. All right. So we got Banana Co. at $20 a share. You want to write along. So you want to create a contract. So you're thinking, all right, you know what? I think Banana Co. is going to go up, but I don't think it's going to go up fast. So you might set a contract for, you'll say, at $25, buy, and you'll give a date. I'll just put date for now. So you'll have a contract that says that, okay, if Banana Co. hits $25 by, let's just say it's January 31st, I will give you the right to buy it at that amount. So the person who buys this contract, they pay you a premium. So they pay you a fee. So let's say, for example, we'll say the fee is, let's say it's $4. I'm just picking a number, but let's say they pay you $4. You get to keep that $4 no matter what. So no matter what happens, you get to keep that $4. So then on January 31st, let's say, for example, it's only at $24, Banana Co. Well, it didn't hit 25. They don't have the right to buy it. So they get nothing. You keep your stocks at $24. Plus, you've got that extra $4 that they paid for that right. So you basically have $28 now when it's only worth 24. So you made $4. You made $4 there with Banana Co. Now, here's the thing. Let's say at January 31st, it's $27. So if it's $27, this person here has the right to buy it at 25. Now I say the right, they can decide not to, but they're probably going to buy it in this case. So they're going to buy it at $25. All right. So they basically made $3. In this case, they made $2. Oops. So they made $2. You had to sell it. And you then have to, if you want to do another cover call, you're gonna have to buy it back. So you basically are out $2, but you have that $4 premium you get to keep. So you're actually in $2 in this case. They're actually out $1. So this person who buys it, they're actually hoping for a lot more. So now let's just come down here. Let's say, for example, it was at $30. So if it was at $30, they get to buy it for 25. So you're out $5 in this case. You do have the $4 premium, so you're actually only out $1. In their case there, once again, they bought it. So they bought it. They earned 5 on it. They did, of course, they paid 4 for it. So they're up 1. Now keep in mind, I'm just doing one stock here right now. You're normally buying these in a batch of 100. So where they made $1, if there's 100 of them, they actually made $100. So that's how it works. It's all about that strike price. So that's why, Guy, when you have an ETF, let me show it to you. I'm going to show you one here. We're going to use BTCY. So this is an ETF that uses covered calls. Now, actually, let's go to the full. All right, so when this, there we go. This ETF was launched right up here, pretty much at the peak of the previous bull market for crypto, and then crypto went in, crashed big time. But Bitcoin was worth a little over 60,000 here, and you'll notice they crashed. But right now, it's only worth, Bitcoin's worth like about 100,000 at this point. And, right now they're down here. So they never fully recovered. And the reason they never fully recovered is that when we get, like during here, it's fine. Right here, even across here, it's fine. But when you get these big movements, that whole thing I just mentioned with the strike price, that's what's happening. So their covered calls on Bitcoin are getting triggered because those price rises are being zoomed past. And when they get zoomed past, they then have to buy back that Bitcoin that they're holding in their fund. So it reflects on this price here. So you don't get that full potential of what happened with Bitcoin. You only get part of it because they end up leapfrogging some of the parts. And that's the reason that it takes, like when you look right here, when it was down around $6, this is when Bitcoin was around Bitcoin was around 60,000, somewhere's down in here when it was around, around 6-ish. As you can see, that's like $3 less than where it was before. And that's what happened there. All right. Look at this. We got ourselves a dividend from the banana bread company. And you know what that means? That means we got ourselves a goat. So the banana bread company is a goat. For those of you new to the channel, I have no idea who the banana bread company is. One of the random folks in here is the banana bread company, and every so often they bless us with a dividend. So thank you, big time, banana bread company. All right, let's see here. All right, 9 says, yeah, I hold 4 cash ETFs in my TFSA. Yeah, exactly. And it makes sense. But like I said, it really depends on what you're doing. If you're doing it the way I'm doing it, you probably can be fine with one. But, if you are that person who buys every little dip that comes along, you probably want to have more than one. And I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with doing it that. I just have my strategy. I sort of follow along the Warren Buffett type strategy when it comes to sort of building up those cash positions towards things. Let's see. Interesting. Thank you to everyone for the replies. There we go. Oh, now I need a sip. Oh, that was good. All right, guys. No, excuse me. A small tickle in the throat. All right, guys. This has been another wonderful stream. So we will. Oh gosh. Just give me one. Oh my God. I said, just give me 1 second. And my phone or my watch is doing a timer with 1 second. It says done. It did a 1 second timer. That's hilarious. Oh, I'm not sure what I breathed in there, but anyway, guys, we will be back here on New Year's Eve. I am looking forward. This is one of my favorite shows, so it will be awesome. So until then, and I have to be big. A huge shout out, of course, to the Banana Bread Company and to everybody else. This was a great. Oh God, I really dislike little tickles, but whew. Let's see the difference between BTCY and BTCC. Okay, fine. You snuck a question in. So BTCY uses covered calls. BTCC, of course, is just a straight up spot Bitcoin ETF. They're not using covered calls at all. So even though you see the CC in it, it looks deceptive. But if you look, just give me a second here. Oh boy. Whew. All right, BTCC. All right, here we go. If you look at it, you'll notice that we don't have the big falls. We also get much more of a movement up. And I think the last one we looked at a 5-year. So if you look at the 5-year, you'll see that with this one, because we're not using covered calls, you can see we're up much higher. So we don't, we have not reached the top like we did, like with BTCY, we're still a little bit below where we started. Here we're not. So if in many ways, if you sort of look at here, from here to here, that's the potential that you lost with BTCY. And I'm going to put this out here right now. Some people will be like, well, okay, but I'm getting that dividend. Yeah, you are. And if I reinvested it, I probably am fine. You're closer. You're closer. But you may not be. You may not be quite there. Now, it depends on when you buy it. Like I will tell you right now with the BT. So between this and other in the spot Bitcoin ETFs, I will, when we're in a market, where things are kind of down like this, I was riding BTCY because, they're not losing upside potential in here. So I rode them pretty much up to about here. And at this point, I dropped out and I got into a regular Bitcoin ETF, just a spot, no covered calls, because I didn't want to lose that upside potential. So I will swap that way. So just something to keep in mind. At least the tickle's gone. The tickle's gone. So that's a good thing. All right. 9 says Banana Bread Company IPO. Yeah. It's like, I almost feel like right now, I do have Mountain Finance registered as a company name. Just the name right now, but it's like, yeah, if I ever turn that into a real company, maybe I'll have to have like a subsidiary called the Banana Bread Company, just for fun, just for funsies. We could sell like banana bread T-shirts or something. Which reminds me, I do have to really start working. By the way, guys, whoa, look at that. That's not fun. All right. Yeah. So right now I have the Make Dams Great Again mug. So I know people have been asking for stuff. I know Reverend Ramirez, I don't think he's here today. He's asking for a Mountain Finance tote bag. So that's probably going to be the next thing I'll make. So I'm going to start putting things together here. I'll have much more time in January to get this together. Once I get a bit of product on it, we'll do like an official launch. And that'll be kind of fun here. But yeah, like this here, like I think you can actually buy these if you really want to Make Dams Great Again mug. I'll give you the link. I'll give you the link. Why not? I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it's active. But yeah, so I actually kind of want one of these mugs myself too. That's a 15-ounce one. But maybe one of these days I'll come in here and I won't have this. I'll have a Make Dams Great Again mug. So yeah, I'm gonna do a few different things. Some banana bread stuff. Maybe some more of the celebrity beavers. I'll basically go by with you guys. This is the way I think I'm gonna run the store. Is when you guys say I think a product of this would be good, I'll be like, okay. Kind of like Reverend Ramirez and the tote bag. So, but like one like this here, I put it on a mug, but I think I can put the same one like on a T-shirt and maybe a hat and all. That's what we need. We'll all be wearing these black hats that say "Make Dams Great Again." We'll start our own little movement. Oh boy. Oh, what have I started? Anyway, it's just something that is there. I'm going to work on that later into the year for sure. It's high priority. All right, guys. Yeah. So I think let me get rid of this. I think yeah. think we're at the end of today's show, but 2025, we're not taking our foot off of the pedal at all. Um, it's going to be full speed ahead. We're going to have tons more of these shows, starting off with, of course, that Tuesday night New Year's show. I know some of you have plans. It's all right to miss that one. Family and parties come first. But for those of you who got nothing to do, you got nothing to do with me. Okay, that sort of sounds a little weird, but that's fine. All right, guys. Until then, take care. I will see you guys hopefully Tuesday. Bye, everybody. Bye again.